Alice Wong, Broder County Commission.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open up the public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Commissioner's update. Let's see, we attended the MACO conference in Missoula and also attended the LEPC meeting here in town.
Yeah, I attended Macon, Missoula, and LEPC too.
And I attended the same too, and also had the Montana Board of Crime Control retreat the week before.
Have minutes here from September 10th to approve. Is there a motion to approve?
I thought I'd give Franklin a chance since I always do the minutes, but I will move to approve those minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve minutes for September 7th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Claims. Let's see. Payroll claims in the amount of $188,809.42.
We'll pay payroll a stated amount.
Second?
Motion been made and seconded to pay payroll claims and set amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Claims in the amount of $55,696.47.
And we'll pay the claim for the stated amount.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to pay claims and set amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next set of claims, the amount of $12,028.06.
I will move to pay the approved claims in the amount of $12,028.06.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to pay claims and set amount. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
And the contract for the registered dietitian for the WIC program, contract needs to be signed.
I will move to sign said contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made, to sign a contract for the WIC registered dietitian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. There's two of them I gotta sign.
Okay. Not here, there's another page, right?
Hmm?
There's another page, right?
Yeah, the tape.
Okay.
There's two of them.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, that position, that's already part of the budget for that WIC program, or
yes, for public health,
this is just a continuation?
yes.
And there's two tests.
Counting bills from Verizon Wireless. Also a bill for Connect Telephone monthly maintenance. Invitations to a Building the Future conference. Northwest Energy and Northwest Energy again, bills. A receipt for Dr. Campbell for the tree board for $208.19. That's pretty much it for me. Move on to
Should make the minutes from the conference part of the public record too.
minutes from the 1008th annual conference. Move on to Allison Costco, Extension Agent, monthly update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll be quick. I have one business thing to start off with. We'll be getting a refund from MSU for about $3,800, and that's actually from the internship. If you recall, about this time last year, you paid for our 2018 intern out of PILT funding. It was $4,800, and long story short, but MSU ended up not needing all that money. They were able to fund most of the internship centrally. So they're returning about $3,800, give or take a little bit. And so I just need to let the treasurer's office know where you'd like that money deposited when it comes in, which should be probably any day.
Excellent.
So,
That's good news.
yeah, so,
Yeah. Yeah, probably should go back to PILT,
okay,
since that's where it came out of.
okay.
Yeah, but, yeah, I think that's excellent.
Okay, I will let Melissa know. Goodness, frog in my throat this morning. And then I guess another update as far as our office move. We finally were contacted by the hospital on what they're going to do with that meeting room, and just kind of putting this on the record that the hospital decided they're only going to have that meeting room available for the public through October, and then they're closing it down. And so we're just scrambling quite a bit in our office to figure out where we're gonna have all of our winter meetings. At the height of our indoor 4-H meetings in the winter, we're hosting about 7 to 8 4-H meetings a month in that ambulance building. So we're trying to figure out where to have them. And same with my extension meetings that I've always held in there. So, sometimes 10 to 12 meetings a month in that room. Probably looking at having to pay to either use the Mason building or the community room, which will come out of either the 4-H program or my office, neither of which has the extra money for. So, and then that doesn't even count all of the other things that go on in that building outside of my office in the 4-H program. So if you guys have any ideas and suggestions on meeting spaces or ways to get that covered, I'm all ears at this point. We do have a lot going on right now, obviously, trying to pack the office up, but also 4-H program. We started re-enrollment last week, so we have that coming in. We have our awards program planned, and so we're in the process of selecting awards right now. Council's meeting tomorrow to select a lot of those awards, so we're getting all that finalized. So ending the old 4-H year and starting the new ones, there's always a lot going on. Recruiting volunteers, setting meeting schedules for the winter, fall, all that fun stuff. I have some egg programs in the works. I'm doing another program on exempt water rights. I did one of these in the spring. I want the flyer on exempt water rights workshop. And we decided we needed to do a follow-up. DNRC is requiring that everyone file their exempt water rights. These are all of the water rights that were exempt prior to 1973, primarily dealing with water usage for stock, in-stream stock water. Some domestic wells were all exempt prior to 1973. And so we did a workshop on it this spring with Krista Lee Evans out of Helena. And she did a great job talking a little bit more about the history of exempt water rights, a little bit on it, filing exempt water rights, a few other water rights issues, and it was a really great workshop, but there were still quite a few questions that came out of that, specifically what sort of documentation is needed to file these exempt water right claims, because if you don't file, you don't lose those claims, but you lose your ability to have a senior right, or to, like, if someone was ever to file against you and you didn't have anything filed, you might potentially lose it or have more of a junior right. So it's important that people do file these. So Jim Beck is going to do this workshop next month on October 17th, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the documentation process, the filing process, kind of what people really need to put together. He will also talk a little bit about the history, kind of what Krista did, just as a kind of a background for those that were at her workshop, so anyone can come to this. But he is going to dive a little bit deeper into that filing process, where Krista did not. So, and this really applies to, it could be obviously ranchers. This is a big deal for them, but also, anyone who might have small acreage property that's watering livestock out of the creek, that has a history of doing that, not just recently, but has to have that history of it on that property as well. So it really applies to a lot of different people. So hoping to get a good turnout for that one. We had a good turnout at the one in the spring. So
Maybe interesting. How can you file a water right if your stock are using a creek?
you're required to, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was exempt.
Just that it's historically done. I
This
guess.
is that it's historically done, yeah. So it's not like a new water right where you have to do quite a bit of the long form and everything.
Yeah.
So it's a shorter form, but you do have to have just some documentation that shows that it's historically been used as that. And I'm not the expert, that's why I'm bringing in speakers on it, but there are some options for how to do that. And again, like, if you don't file, that doesn't mean that you necessarily lose it or they have to stop doing it. But if someone else, like, above you filed a new water right and you didn't have any paperwork, that one would probably go to, like, a junior water right on it. So just kind of gives landowners the authority in the backup to have those water rights filed. So, DNRC sent out letters.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Yeah, about a year ago. Yeah, because this was a result out of the 2017 legislature is where this is coming from. The DNRC needed to start doing it. So, so we have that coming up. That's the one thing that's on the schedule in the near future. We're already starting to look at some of the winter programs. I've talked to Jessica about doing a weed program together for pesticide applicator credits. We'll have the Rancher Roundtable programs, which we do every winter as well. We have a planning meeting for those next week. We also have a planning meeting in a couple weeks for the crop school, which is usually in February, which is kind of crazy to think about that. So, yeah, so we're starting to build those programs. Also, looking at bringing in an estate planning speaker, so I've gotten several requests for estate planning, probably some point this winter. I don't know yet when that'll be, but these are all things in the works. So it'll be another busy winter of programs.
You don't really have a slow season, do you?
Not really. It just
No.
switches gears. Like it's a different kind of style. You know, summer is a lot more walk-ins, field work, you know, people bringing in samples, those sorts of things. Winter is more, you know, program planning mode where we have classes and workshops and those sorts of things. So it's just a different feel. But yeah, really not really a slow season.
No.
No. Just different. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah. Questions, concerns, comments?
I just want to commend you on doing an outstanding job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If you don't have anything else for me, I'll be done for the day.
So where are you gonna hold your meetings and trainings and everything? You gonna hold
I
them
don't know.
here, or you haven't just figured that out yet?
We haven't figured that out. Yeah. We might hold some things in here, but to be honest, for a lot of things we do, this room is not really conducive for a really good learning environment. And so we're looking at options. I've been talking to Tina Edelblut about using the Mason building, which I think will be an option for some things. I think the challenge is going to be is she does need to pay for the lights and whatnot and heat, so she's going to have to charge something. And whether or not we'll be able to afford that for every meeting, when we're running, 8 meetings a month for 4-H, I don't know that that's going to be feasible. But for some things, maybe. So we're just kind of working with her on that to kind of see what she will give us for a deal. Because we do realize that she does need something for it, but at the same time, we have to be able to afford it. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where we'll be. We'll be in the ambulance building at least through October for meetings anyway. Yep. So, and the water rights one is at the library community room, and they charge $30 for a day or half day. So that's really not very feasible for a lot of things either, but for some things, do it. But. Okay.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
We do have one more pieces of mail here, the Montana Department of Commerce. On behalf of the state of Montana, it's my pleasure to notify you that the Broadwater County has been selected for a community development block grant program, planning grant award in the amount of $30,000 to complete a growth policy update, capital improvements plan update, and a floodplain ordinance update. So I have a letter here from the Montana Association of Counties concerning our workman's compensation trust. Debbie has a difference of opinion. They want to have a teleconference on this week sometime.
I think they scheduled it for Wednesday morning.
Okay. A DEQ discharge permit for the wastewater treatment plant of the city of Conrad. for mail. Let's see, 10:30, we're supposed to have a cold, or anything else before that?
If you need a bigger copy.
We're ready if you are.
Oh, you are ready for me, sorry. I was taking my time coming down here. Good morning. So you all have your application for the Sage Hill Minor subdivision development.
Where's this located, Nicole?
This is off of Springville Lane, north of Townsend. So as you're looking over that, I want to go over a couple of things. There has been some discrepancy and some information found that Springville may or may not be a county road all the way to its terminus. Bernadette, the representative for the developer on this project, and myself have found where Springville is a county road up to its intersection with Desert Drive. So essentially at the cattle guard, if you're familiar with Springville Lane at all. So I have some documentation in here. So the developer, what I'm getting at, the developer would like to take an additional 20 days, a 20-day extension, in order for this commission to maybe request assistance from the county attorney on whether or not this is a county road. And I have some documentation for you on that as well. So not to change the subject of this, but I would prefer to not go over the findings of fact and order report for the Sage Hill Minor subdivision today. Basically because the conditions of approval are dependent on the status of Springville Lane. The planning board and myself, and I will give you the findings of fact and order document, but I think that you would end up changing those conditions depending on the status of Springville Lane. If Springville Lane is a privately maintained road, then this developer has an obligation to put money into it, as far as improving the road. If it's a county road, we cannot require the developer to put any money towards it. There's no financial obligation of the developer for the improvement of Springville. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Okay. So it really does matter if Springville Lane, or road as it's referred to both, it really does matter if it's a county road or not. It matters for the conditions of approval. So I would like the commission to request assistance from the county attorney or whomever you choose in determining whether or not that's a county road. Bernadette has done a wonderful job and put together a packet of information for you here on the status of Springville. So there's the question of the status of Springville, and then there's the question of the status of the roads in Springville town site itself. Whether or not those are county roads, whether or not they are fee simple county roads. I sent an email to County Attorney Swanson asking him this question because I can't give you the details, but I do have another subdivision coming in. And one of their main accesses is Spring Street within the town site of Springville. And it's unclear as to the status of those roads. So I've asked the question, and now I'm giving it to you essentially to ask the question. Not to pass the buck, but I
So
can't go any further.
Springville Road or Lane,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know if that's county, so what, Spring Street, that would affect your access to lot 24D? Potentially,
yes. 24D has the option of a driveway easement. You know, the developer has indicated that if a determination of Spring Street can't be made, within this 20-day extension, they would simply put in a driveway access easement along the eastern boundary of, I believe, A and C. Is it? I guess I could look at my map.
C or E?
E, is that what it is? E.
E is
Okay,
small.
yep, that's the one. So there would be an eastern 35-foot, just a driveway access easement, so no roads would have to be constructed.
That would come off Springville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in this instance, it's not absolutely necessary that we have a determination for Spring Street or for all of the roads in Springville, but I'm telling you for this subsequent development that I'll be bringing forward to you, or to the planning board, I need an answer on that.
So is this 20 working days or 20 days?
You know, it just says 20 days,
Okay.
which would put us to October 17th.
Okay. So we would need to, in our request, give the county attorney a deadline. We need
Correct.
this answer by.
Yeah, and I know that he's very busy, and so I don't know if there's another resource that I should be using or that you would like to use in order to get that information. It just so happens, this development came in, they met all of the requirements, they proved the best they could. However, the developer has said, you know what, if we can determine that this is a county road, Springville Lane or Springville Road, whichever you want to call it, that would affect his conditions of approval, obviously saving him money in the long run, if indeed it's determined to be a county road. So, the developer has given us this 20-day extension in the hopes that it could benefit him if it's determined to be a county road. But we still need determinations on the interior roads of Springville as well.
And we don't have a dog in that fight, but we do need to know what the facts on the ground are.
Absolutely, yes.
And the landowner would prefer to use Spring Street instead of burdening the other lot with the easement. That's his preferred use of the road, but if it, was a make or break deal, then they could put the driveway easement in.
Okay.
You haven't heard anything back from Corey yet then?
I have not, no. I know that he has a full plate, and so I'm not sure. I don't want to push on him too much, I guess is what I'm saying. But this is outside of my capabilities of, making this determination.
It's gonna take a while to research probably.
Right, and Bernadette has put together, I will give you, first of all, I'll give you this 20-day extension letter so that you've got a copy of this for your file. Just showing that indeed the developer did give you an extension of 20 days. Very quickly. And then Bernadette has put together an extensive, she's gone as far as she could in the research of Springville. And so this is a packet of information. She's put together one for each of you and then also one for Corey, so that it could minimize his research time. Do you need a copy of this packet? I do. So basically, all of the information that was available, that she was able to locate, here in the courthouse, Bernadette has included in this packet.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, how much time do you need between having an answer either way and bringing this forward with your findings of fact?
It could happen even the same day. As long as it's done by October 17th, because essentially what I would do is I would bring you this findings of fact and order report, and at this table, you could amend those conditions based on findings.
Okay.
So it would take no time at all. I would prefer to have it ahead of time, but I certainly cannot, these are the conditions of approval set forth by the planning board. So, the way the process works, I give my recommended list of conditions of approval. The planning board generally does some reworking of it, which they did in this case. So I don't have the ability to go ahead and amend these conditions now. That would have to come from the commission. So again, it could all happen at the same meeting.
But you don't feel we need to go back to the planning board?
I don't think it's necessary, and the planning board didn't feel it was necessary either.
Okay.
So, you certainly can. You certainly can remand it back to the planning board if you'd like, and have them take another look at it, depending on information that's determined. But that really is your call to make.
But with the 20 days extension, that wouldn't extend that?
It would not, no.
Okay. All right. So we would need a deadline of probably the 15th, which is that Monday.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that
to
we'd
have
have a
information.
couple extra days if we needed it.
Mhm. And again, if it's not determined to be a county road by that time, the developer has the option of requesting, of giving the county an additional extension, or sticking with the conditions of approval that myself and the planning board have put together, which does include cost participation or cost sharing of Springville. So it doesn't make this project dead. It doesn't do anything other than could potentially save him some money. And, it would be a good thing to have determined, so.
Mhm.
So is there a motion to allow the 20-day extension on this? Or do we have to have a motion?
The motion should be to request of the county attorney a determination regarding both Springville Lanes, county road status, and Springville Street by October 15th.
It would be Springville Road or Lane and Spring Street.
Spring Street, thank you.
And we don't need, do we need to have the determination on Spring Street as part of these conditions of approval or not, is it just Springville?
It is included as a condition in here, that basically they would have to do some cost participation, cost sharing, construction, engineering of Spring Street if it were not a county road. I don't like ambiguous conditions is essentially why we're doing this and why the developer has said yes. You know, the developer requested the 20-day extension. The county's not requesting the extension because our review is complete. But there are two if-then conditions in here, and I like black and white. As does the developer and Bernadette, the representative, so.
I have a question though about the days. So if we're talking just regular days, I just want to verify that, did the developer agree to the 17th as our 20 days? Because if today's the 24th, right?
And it was a 20-day extension essentially from the date of expiration, is what I
Perfect.
calculated that from, and the date of I shouldn't say expiration, where the county must make their determination by the 27th.
Okay,
So
Right.
I used that date.
okay, thank you for the clarification, and I would amend, I don't think I've made a motion, but I think it should state from the date, the 20 days starts at the date of expiration. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to make the motion.
Yeah, I'd rather have the motion for 20 days.
Okay, so I will move that we charge the county attorney with determining the status of Springville Lane after Desert Drive and the status of Spring Street by October 15th, and that the county accept the 20-day extension as offered by the developer from the expiration date, which makes it October 17th is our deadline.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to allow the 20-day extension for county attorney to determine statuses of Springville Lane and Spring Street. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. So is this, we're calling it Springville Lane or Springville Road, which one is it?
The sign on the ground says Springville Lane. Okay, no. No, I don't know. I know that the plat is either lane or road, and the sign on the ground is either lane or road, but they differ.
This plat says Springville Road.
Okay, let's call it Springville Road.
Okay.
I believe the green sign out there, on the highway
The
says.
direction it's going, it would be a road.
Yeah, okay.
I think you'll see in the documentation that there were two roads. They weren't interchangeable. There was Springville Road and Springville Lane. And then I think that's where some of the confusion arose, as you'll see in some of the documentation. But,
Was not Springville Lane changed to Desert Drive?
well, no, that's Springville Road. Springville Road, the legal description of Springville Road goes from the highway to the cattle guard and straight down Desert Drive. So
Okay,
that
okay.
portion of Springville Road was changed to Desert Drive.
Okay.
And then I think what left at the cattle guard forward was Springville Lane. Because
Total confusion.
it is a total confusion, but there's maps in there from like the 1950s. There are two distinct roads.
Okay.
It was during the process that it was changed down where Desert Drive is and all, where the roads were changed, and I think that's where some of the confusion came up because they changed the location of the roads, which kind of clouded the fact of where the two roads were separated. Yeah, it is very confusing.
So is there a road out here that comes off of Springville that goes down to Spring Street or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that one is, it used to be Sixth, I believe, and that one is now Big
And then
Sky Drive.
is this an alleyway that was eliminated or is this a street?
That's a street, but I don't know that it was ever given a name. And being a town site, I know we have this similar instance occurring in Toston and Winston and Raidersburg, where the roads are there. And, you know, people don't own necessarily to the center line, so it's a little bit more difficult to determine, and, you know, they're not taxed, the roadways, so. I shouldn't say that, they're not showing on any property owner taxes.
Do you have any other access to anyone other than if Corey's doesn't get to this?
Access as far as,
Should someone else to determine?
I could run it past our Mako land use attorney, that I don't know if that falls under the scope of what she does for the counties. You know, it is a land use question, but determining a status of a county road, I don't know. I've never asked that of her before, or of any of our Mako land use attorneys that we've had in the past. Because really, the determination is up to the commissioners to determine it. However, you go to your resource in order to assist you in making that determination. Because you being the governing body have the authority to do so. I don't have any authority to make that determination.
So there's a subsequent subdivision that you're talking about, are they just gonna use Spring Street to the access to those 2 blocks, or are they gonna use Spring Street to access that's the only access they would be on those 2 lots, right?
There'll be 2 lots that will need to utilize Spring Street, because that will be their only access. And then they'll use Springville for a secondary driveway access. And in that instance, they may have to build roads if we don't have a determination on Spring Street. So again, it's beneficial to them to have an answer.
So once Corey makes that determination, then you'll come back to us with this again?
Correct, and like I said, that can be made, and it can be the same meeting. It should be 2 separate agenda items, I would think. One, the determination of Springville roads, if you will, however you want to word that, and then the second agenda item would be Sage Hill Minor. But I think that the road discussion should come first, or the determination should come first, because that will affect the conditions of approval. If you choose to amend them based on what the planning board has provided, or stay with what we have. So at a very minimum, I will be scheduling this to come before you again on October 15th. Probably at a later time, just to allow for
Okay,
a morning meeting and discussion. Because the 15th is a Monday, correct?
yeah.
And I think you're right, I think it should be 2 separate.
Because it really is 2 separate issues. This
Exactly.
development, the conditions of 2 of the conditions of approval depend on the status of those roads.
Yeah.
But even if we don't, I suppose if we don't have any update from Corey, this development can still move forward, or the developer can request an extension to wait, for that determination to be made.
So ideally, we would, yes, Bernadette?
I just wanted one other clarification that I think moving forward, if it's determined that the portion of Springville Lane from the cattle guard to Springville is not a county road, that might be an important issue to address, even if we have to file another extension. Because we've, got a county road to there, but there's a lot of people that access, all of Springville through there. And road issues that have come up before that access a lot of properties like White Horse Road and those sort of things that aren't a county road. I think it would be important to clarify it. If it was determined it wasn't, maybe, go through the process of declaring that portion a county road, just to prevent any road issues from in the future. Is one part we're looking at too. And, the landowner, the road cost is not that big of an importance or that big of a deal. It'd be 5/50th of just that portion of gravel road going through the neighboring subdivision. So the cost is very minimal, but I think the benefit of declaring that portion through that 20 and Maury's 20, because those are the two areas that are not a county road. To determine it as a county road, just to prevent issues in the future. You could always get somebody that, I don't know. But, so if it was determined, you know, the landowner would be interested in even extending it further if they had to go through the process of declaring it a county road. And because of the Springville streets, if they're abandoned, they're deeded to the neighboring landowners by the county. So if the county owns the dirt, that's why we need the clarification, are they county roads or not? And like I said, this little section of road that's undetermined in between county-owned property and declared county road, it just creates a lot of confusion out there. And not for just this development, for access to all of Springville and everyone out there.
So there's three different options for the road. There's no chance that it's a private road publicly maintained, correct? Or private road, period?
Well, right now it is. The portion through the 20 acres right before, from the cattle guard to Maury Schaefer's property is a public road because it went through a subdivision process.
Okay.
So that portion was declared for public use. The portion through Maury's property is questionable.
Okay.
It's not a declared county road, or it could be or could not be covered by an easement I found. That was an old haul road is what it just said we're, you know, giving an easement on the old haul road, but, you know, I don't know where that was at that point in time. So it could or could not be covered under that easement. So, you know, so that portion through that 20 is definitely in question of whether it's public or, you know, everyone's just been driving through it, so it would have to go through a prescriptive use issue. But there's no exact documentation on that portion.
Okay.
Is there any documentation on this, on that road above Maury's property then?
Through the neighboring 20, up to his border, you mean?
Well, the one that comes off Desert Drive, that's not documented as any.
Yeah, well, it is, because that was subdivided quite a few years ago. So during that process, it was declared a public road, because it goes through there.
So what about on the other side of Maury's?
Then there, the Springville begins,
The town side of
the
Springville.
town side of Springville.
So we don't know if that's a county road or not.
Right,
Right.
but it would not be a privately owned road, simply because it's within an unowned right-of-way. In Maury's case here, Maury Schaefer, the developer, he owns to the center line. He owns both sides of the road. Once you enter into the town side of Springville, you can see those easements for the roadway, you know, that the property owners do not own to the center line. In Maury's instance, he owns to the center line. The landowner to the east of him owns, or landowners, I should say, own to the center line. Once you enter into Springville, they do not own to the center line.
Oh, okay.
It'd
Because
be
it's
like
platted as a town
Toston,
site.
Raidersburg, even Townsend, except Townsend's an incorporated city, so ownership falls to the corporation.
So who's responsible for these roads in Springville? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. The county is not maintaining them currently. But I don't know if they should be. And I know that Corey was doing some research on Toston, on the roadways in Toston, because similar instances where landowners had requested the road closed, the commissioners, I don't believe it was this commission, but the commissioners at the time, deeded them that roadway. Is that the commission or the county assuming ownership and responsibility of those roads? Because they're not being maintained, which I've recognized that you don't have a duty to maintain them. but it's very ambiguous as to who actually owns the road.
So could Maury shut this road off right here then?
There's a possibility. I mean, of course, it would end up, in court. I'm certain of that, by the landowners. But that's what Bernadette is saying. It's undetermined. He pays taxes on the entire piece of it to the center line of the roadway. So there's an easement for a haul road there. Does that make it a county road? Does that make it a public road? Is the haul road, as mentioned there in your packet of information, is it really in that location where Springville Road is now? We don't know.
And actually it wasn't, it was on the north side of the
Oh, okay.
ravine. And I put some maps in there that, from the 50s anyways, that what was existing then. And I think, just from the way things happened, in the 80s, a group came forward and said, we want to reestablish Springville, bring it back to life, probably sell lots. And there was talk about the road being built and, all of that. And so that's when that started moving forward. And then the residents, I think in 87, I believe it was, the residents came forward saying, please declare this a county road, both roads, Springville Lane and Springville Road. And they went through the petition process and everything, and then the county came back and said, okay, we accept the petition, we declare this a county road. But they used a singular, where the request was specifically for both roads. It, specifically says both roads. The two roads benefits the residents of Springville and the other properties. And the petition also went through signatures that signed for Springville Road, petitioners that signed for Springville Lane, and petitioners that signed for Springville Road and Springville Lane. So it was definitely two specific requests. But when the gavel came down, it said, we declare it a county road. Springville Lane and Springville Road, we declare a county road. So they used a singular, so was it a typo? But it doesn't specifically say both roads. One of them had a legal description because of it being changed. Springville Lane did not. So it said, we declare them a county road, Springville Lane and Springville Road described as follows. So does that mean the name was interchangeable and it's described as follows? Or Springville Lane, as it was, and Springville Road with this new legal description? And that's where we need an attorney, the county attorney, and you guys to make that call. Then, years later, the same people came back and said, okay, you haven't declared this a county road. And they said, well, put in the culvert and we will. And then there's nothing ever again. And so I don't know if the confusion lasted or because, it was years separating them.
Was the culvert put in? Do you know?
I believe the culvert's in, but it said that the ladies, it was Wanda Watson and Linda Thompson, were given the size and the cost. And that was